We can now bring in Yossi Mekelberg, Senior Consulting Fellow at the Middle East and North Africa Program at Chatham House. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. Now, this flotilla with Greta Thunberg and others was always going to be a PR stunt. They weren't really carrying a significant amount of aid to change anything realistically on the ground in Gaza. Israel was never going to allow this group of people into the enclave, but according to the Freedom Flotilla, they were intercepted in international waters. So in the court of international public opinion, I'm curious, who wins this battle?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Unfortunately, no one wins this battle as long as there is not enough aid coming into Gaza. You know, there are human rights activists, and they're entitled to express their opinion in different ways, including the way that this boat and activists try to bring some symbolic aid to Gaza. But we know this is not going to solve the problem. But what is important about it creates the attention about the need for aid. Now, it's for international law. I mean, a country is not allowed unless it's in the immediate risk to stop boats in international border or international water. But I think the most important thing, as we have the attention on aid to Gaza, is to ensure that more aid on enough, much bigger quantities enter, because the situation in Gaza is disastrous.
Now, according to Israel's defense minister, this group of individuals, the 12 of them, will be shown a 45-minute video of the Hamas attacks on October 7th, 2023. Israel Katz says he will show it to anti-Semitic Greta Thunberg and her fellow Hamas supporters. Is it fair to label everyone who opposed this war an anti-Semite and pro-Hamas?
First of all, I'm not so sure how you can force anyone to watch anything. Is it part of the legal system? I think, yes, there are those videos of what happened October 7, how horrific, and to watch, anyone watch even part of it, horrified to see what Hamas did. But between then and is it a sort of education or punishment for them to watch it? It's not part of the legal system in Israel. At the end of the day, I'm sure they will be released and sent back. But again, this is not an issue. What happened? On the one hand, there is a publicity stunt by the activists, but also Israel ministers are using it as a publicity stunt to show how forceful they are to prevent anyone intervening in what happened in Gaza. But again, the international pressure is mounting on Israel, and rightly so, just to allow enough humanitarian aid to aid into Gaza, because people are suffering from food insecurity, in many cases starvation, and this can't be right.
Yossi, you mentioned that the humanitarian situation in Gaza is deplorable, disastrous, whatever. We've seen this blockade. Now we've seen a little bit of aid that was allowed in a couple of weeks ago. Now the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is doing its thing. Security issues continue to plague that operation. But at the same time, we don't really hear much from Arab leaders, and the Western leaders who do have something to say are just making statements. There's no action yet.
And I think I really believe that actions are on the way, because at least in my conversation in different places, I think leaders and politicians, members of parliaments around the world, the NGOs, international organizations are fed up with the situation. And again, Israel can't keep repeating what happened. And again, on October 7 was horrific, but at the same time, it doesn't justify to starve the population of Gaza, of innocent people, that already 54,000 people have been killed. And we saw the Gaza Humanitarian doesn't provide enough humanitarian aid, let alone as a result of establishing these centers and security issues. Dozens and dozens of Palestinians were killed by the IDF. So we know this is not the solution. It actually results in killing more Palestinians. And the big question, as you pose it, is for the international community to make its will aid for more food and other humanitarian aid to enter into Gaza account. And the second thing, to bring an end to the war and also release the hostages.
Indeed. Because last Thursday we had the French president who said that discussions are ongoing with regards to what steps to take against Israel. Take a listen to what Emmanuel Macron had to say.
The discussions are ongoing, and we'll see in the coming days if we need to raise the tone and take concrete measures. I do not want to say more here so as not to hinder the ability of our ministers.
Yossi, we had the French president who visited the border, the Egyptian border with Gaza during that 11-week blockade. He wasn't able to let aid in while he was there on the ground. He's been back here. Again, France has been mulling action. It's been weeks that France has been mulling action, but for now it's just a hypothetical. Why is it not possible for Western leaders to really pressure Israel, not to end the war, but just let aid in?
I must admit, I asked myself the same question, and this question should be asked, the leaders within the European Union and other countries, the UK and elsewhere. But this is the question. I understand it's not easy. Israel has been a close friend and ally of these countries for many years. There are close ties between Israel and countries, but right now there is a government in Israel that undermines European interests, but I think it undermines its own interest, its own prestige and credibility in the international arena. And unless there is pressure, it seems that this government won't allow humanitarian aid and is not interested in ending the war. It shouldn't reflect on the entire population in Israel, but at this point, there is a need for pressure on the Israeli government. And I think it's something that no friendly country prepared itself to deal in this way with Israel, and they find it more difficult than one would expect.
I want to shift focus next to what's happening domestically in Israel, because the Netanyahu government seems like it's on shaky ground. This after two ultra-Orthodox parties have threatened to withdraw from the government unless it secures concessions formalizing an exemption for ultra-Orthodox men from military service. In your opinion, will the Prime Minister bow to pressure from these parties and risk an uprising domestically at home just to keep his job?
I think we learned at least in the last 2.5 years, that Prime Minister Netanyahu would do anything in order to stay in power and to stay as a prime minister, because it's closely linked and connected to his corruption trial, because only this helps him to prolong almost endlessly, indefinitely, his corruption trial day after day. As we speak, he was today in court, cross-examined by the prosecution in his corruption trial, and he always looks for an excuse to shorten the days of evidence, the time of evidence, because that's what he's interested. So he's trying to also to maintain the coalition until next October. So I won't be surprised if we make concessions only to the ultra-Orthodox party. But this is one of the issues that really divides Israeli society, that at the time that conscripts are serving up to 400 days over the last 20 months and put their life at risk, many lost their lives, the ultra-Orthodox decided that they don't want to serve in the military, and they're very happy to live on the expense of the taxpayers, and this creates tension. But the question whether those who are actually serving in the military, those who pay the taxes, are ready to take to the streets and protest and express their opinion, of course, democratically.
But the thing is, people have been taking to the streets against the Prime Minister. Hostage families have been calling on the government to end this war, bring the hostages home, seek a ceasefire agreement, and yet now he would essentially risk the wrath of liberal Israeli society, who have, as you said, continued to pay their taxes. They have sent their children off to fight in this war, which soldiers themselves are questioning what objectives they're achieving right now, because they haven't been able to bring the hostages home.
And Netanyahu is very cynically exploiting the situation right now in the division and actually deepens the division, because that's the way he basically stay in power, by division, by discord within the Israeli society. I think in recent months we didn't see enough people demonstrating and protesting in the streets. There is natural fatigue. Those protests against the attack on the judiciary started before the war. Then, as you mentioned correctly, tried demanding a ceasefire deal that we see the hostages coming back. But you see fatigue and not enough people to make it count are in the street protesting. And if they want a change, if they want not to see passing a bill that will exempt ultra-Orthodox from serving in the military while they're the one that risk their lives and said by paying taxes, then they will have to, until the next election, when they can actually express themselves in the ballot box, they probably need to be in the streets.
We'll see how things pan out, Yossi. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.